Jake
No!
Thompson stood
Get
frozen in
back!
his kitchen, gripping a loaded shotgun in one
Leave her
hand and
alone!
his phone in the other. The number for Hennepin County Animal Shelter was already dialed. His finger hovered over the call button. In the living room behind him, his 5-year-old daughter Sophie lay crying on the hardwood floor, and standing directly over her trembling body was Duke, their German Shepherd, the dog Jake had rescued, trained, loved, and trusted for 3 years. The same dog he was now prepared to put down. This was not a story about a dangerous animal. This was a story about a desperate father who almost destroyed the only creature on Earth trying to save his daughter's life. And what a veterinarian discovered just days later would bring everyone in that room to their knees in tears. Before we go any further, if you love stories about loyalty, about miracles, about the incredible bond between animals and the humans they protect, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story like this one. Drop a comment below telling me about your own pet, and if they have ever done something that amazed you. And if this story touches your heart, give it a thumbs up because that helps more people discover these incredible true tales. Now, let us go back to where it all began. 12 days before Jake stood in that kitchen with a shotgun, the Thompson family of Cedar Falls, Minnesota had everything anyone could dream of. They lived on Maple Ridge Drive, a quiet suburban street lined with oak trees and white picket fences. American flags hung from porches. Neighbors waved at each other every morning. Children rode bicycles until the streetlights came on. It was the kind of place where people still left their doors unlocked at night. Jake Thompson was a decorated firefighter at Station 42, a man who had spent 15 years running into burning buildings while everyone else ran out. He had saved more lives than he could count. His wife Emily taught kindergarten at Roosevelt Elementary, where she was known for her patience, her warmth, and her ability to make every child feel special. They had built their life together brick by brick, and at the center of everything they had created was their daughter Sophie. Sophie was 5 years old with honey blonde curls that bounced when she ran and a laugh that sounded like wind chimes on a summer evening. She collected dandelions like they were diamonds. She named every butterfly she saw in the backyard. She was the kind of child who made strangers smile just by existing, the kind of child who reminded people why the world was still beautiful. But Sophie was more than just their daughter. She was their miracle. Emily had suffered 3 miscarriages before Sophie was born. 3 times they had decorated a nursery. 3 times they had picked out names. 3 times they had felt hope swell in their chests only to have it shattered. 2 years of tears, of doctor's appointments, of wondering if they would ever hold a baby in their arms. And then Sophie arrived, screaming and pink and perfect, and everything they had endured suddenly made sense. She was worth every tear. She was worth every heartbreak. And by Sophie's side from the moment she took her first steps was Duke. Duke had not always been the proud, powerful German Shepherd that patrolled the Thompson property. 3 years ago, he was found abandoned near an old grain silo outside Minneapolis, starving and skeletal, his ribs visible through matted, filthy fur. He had been left to die. His eyes, when the animal control officers approached him, held no trust, no hope, only fear. He had been broken by the world. But Jake Thompson saw something different in those amber eyes the day he visited the Hennepin County Animal Shelter. He saw intelligence. He saw loyalty waiting to be earned. He saw a creature who had been failed by humans, but was still willing to give them another chance. Jake signed the adoption papers that afternoon and brought Duke home. For 3 years, Duke proved himself worthy of that second chance every single day. He slept outside Sophie's bedroom door every night without fail, his ears alert to every sound. He walked her to the school bus stop each morning, sitting patiently at the corner until the yellow bus swallowed her up and carried her away, and only then would he return home. He never growled at strangers. He never snapped at the neighborhood children who came to pet him. He never showed a single sign of aggression toward anyone or anything. Neighbors called him the nanny dog. Parents on the street told their children they wished they had a dog just like Duke. He was gentle. He was patient. He was everything a family dog should be. Until October 14th. That was the day the first incident happened. Emily was in the kitchen chopping vegetables for dinner, humming along to the radio, enjoying the ordinary peace of an ordinary Tuesday evening. The sound of Sophie's scream shattered everything. It was not a playful shriek. It was not a giggle. It was a sound Emily had never heard her daughter make before, a sound of pure terror that turned her blood to ice. Emily dropped the knife and ran. She found Sophie flat on the hardwood floor of the living room, tears streaming down her face, her small body trembling. And standing directly over her was Duke. His posture was rigid. His ears were flat against his skull. His eyes were locked onto Sophie with an intensity that made Emily's heart stop. Duke had pushed Sophie to the ground. That night Jake dismissed it as an accident, a clumsy moment, an overexcited dog bumping into a small child. But the next day it happened again. And the day after that. And the day after that. 7 times in 12 days their beloved Duke knocked their daughter to the floor. 7 times Sophie screamed. 7 times Emily pulled her away from the dog who had once been her protector. Something was wrong with Duke. Something had changed. And no one could figure out why. But here is what no one in that house understood yet. Duke was not attacking Sophie. He was not turning aggressive. He was not losing his mind. Duke knew something that no human in that house could possibly know, something he could smell with his 300 million olfactory receptors, something invisible and deadly growing inside Sophie's small body. And he was running out of time to make them understand. What happened next would change everything the Thompsons believed about their dog, about their daughter, and about what it truly means to be a guardian angel. Duke existed in a world that humans could never truly comprehend. His reality was painted not in colors but in scents, an invisible landscape of chemical signatures and molecular whispers that told him everything he needed to know. Where Jake and Emily saw their healthy, happy, laughing daughter, Duke smelled something entirely different. Something that made every hair on his body stand rigid with alarm. Something that made his ancient canine instincts scream a single word over and over again. Danger. 3 weeks before the first push, Duke noticed something new in Sophie's scent. It was faint at first, barely a whisper beneath the familiar smell of her strawberry shampoo and the laundry detergent Emily used on her clothes. But it was there. A metallic undertone. A sour note that did not belong. It lived beneath Sophie's skin, near her left side, just below her ribs. And every single day, it grew stronger. Duke did not understand medicine. He did not understand cellular biology or tumor growth or the complex mechanisms of childhood cancer. He only understood that something was wrong with his little girl. Something invisible. Something dangerous. Something that was spreading inside her body like a shadow creeping across the floor at sunset. His 300 million olfactory receptors, 50 times more powerful than any human's, detected what no eye could see and no machine had yet discovered. Scientists would later explain that dogs can identify certain cancers with over 90% accuracy simply by smelling the subtle chemical changes that occur when abnormal cells begin to multiply. Duke did not know any of this. He only knew that Sophie smelled wrong. And the wrongness was getting worse. Every instinct built into his DNA across thousands of years of breeding screamed at him to act. German shepherds were created to protect. They were designed to guard. They were engineered through generations of careful selection to recognize danger and respond to it. And Duke was responding the only way he knew how. He tried barking at first. He would stand in front of Sophie and bark, looking from her to Jake to Emily, desperate for them to understand. But they told him to be quiet. They scolded him for making noise. They did not understand. He tried nudging her left side with his nose, pressing against the exact spot where the wrongness lived. But Emily pushed him away, concerned that he was bothering Sophie during playtime. They did not understand. So Duke did the only thing his desperate mind could conceive. When he sensed the danger spiking, when the scent grew strongest, when something inside Sophie pressed against nerves and made her dizzy, he pushed her. He pushed her away from hard surfaces. He pushed her toward soft grass or carpet. He pushed her down before she could fall on her own and crack her skull on concrete or hardwood. He was not attacking. He was catching her before she fell. But the humans could not see what he saw. They could not smell what he smelled. All they saw was a dangerous dog knocking down their precious daughter. All they heard were Sophie's screams. All they felt was fear. Emily began keeping a journal after the 4th incident. She bought a spiral notebook with a blue cover and started documenting everything. The date. The time. The location. What Duke did before, during, and after each push. She was desperate to find a pattern, something that would explain why their gentle family dog had suddenly become aggressive. What she discovered made her blood run cold. Duke's pushes were not random. They followed a specific pattern that repeated with eerie consistency. The incidents happened almost exclusively in the late afternoon, between 3:45 and 5 o'clock. They occurred most frequently after meals, when Sophie had eaten and her body was processing food. And every single time, without exception, Duke's focus was the same: Sophie's left side. He would circle her first, whimpering softly, his eyes locked onto that spot below her ribs. He would nudge her left side with his nose, pressing gently at first, then more insistently. And if Sophie did not sit down on her own, if she kept playing and ignored his warnings, he would push her. Emily also noticed other things. Small details she had initially dismissed as normal childhood behavior. Sophie had been rubbing her left side lately, pressing her palm against her ribs as if something bothered her there. She complained about feeling wobbly sometimes, about the world spinning when she stood up too fast. Her teacher at Roosevelt Elementary had sent home 2 incident reports in the past week about Sophie falling during recess, something that had never happened before with her typically coordinated daughter. One Thursday evening, Emily stood at the kitchen window washing dishes and watching Sophie play in the backyard. Duke sat on the porch steps about 15 feet away from a little girl, and Emily noticed something that made her hands stop moving in the soapy water. Duke was completely, unnaturally still. His eyes never left Sophie. Not for a single second. He was watching her with an intensity that Emily had only seen in working dogs, police dogs and military dogs who were focused on a single mission. Then Sophie paused in the middle of the yard. She swayed slightly. Her hand went to her left side. Before Emily could even process what was happening, Duke exploded off the porch. He covered the distance between them in 3 powerful bounds and shoved Sophie sideways with his shoulder. She tumbled onto the soft grass just as her knees buckled beneath her, landing safely on the lawn instead of crashing onto the concrete edge of the patio that was less than 2 feet away. Emily's coffee mug slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. She stood there frozen, watching Duke stand over Sophie, watching his body language, watching his eyes. And for the first time, she saw something she had missed before. He was not aggressive. His tail was not raised in dominance. His hackles were not up. He was not growling or snarling or showing any sign of hostility. He was terrified. Duke was absolutely terrified for Sophie. And in that moment, a thought entered Emily's mind that changed everything. A thought so impossible, so terrifying, so beautiful that she could barely breathe. What if Duke was not hurting Sophie at all? What if he was trying to save her? But Jake was not convinced. He had seen his daughter knocked to the ground too many times. He had heard her scream too many times. He had comforted her too many times while Duke stood watching with those intense amber eyes. Jake loved Duke. He had rescued him from death and given him a home. But he loved Sophie more. And he would not risk her safety for any animal, no matter how much that animal meant to him. Jake scheduled an appointment at Pine Valley Veterinary Clinic for the following Friday. Dr. Rachel Morrison, a veteran veterinarian with 23 years of experience, would evaluate Duke for behavioral problems and help them make a decision about his future. Rehoming was one option. But Jake had already decided that if Duke was truly dangerous, if there was something broken inside his brain that made him attack children, there was only one responsible choice. Duke would have to be put down. The appointment was scheduled for Friday, October 26th. Duke had 5 days left in the Thompson home. 5 days to make them understand what he had been trying to tell them all along. 5 days before they would send away the only creature who knew that Sophie was dying. But on Wednesday night, at exactly 2:17 in the morning, everything changed. Sophie woke up screaming. The scream that tore through the Thompson house at 2:17 in the morning was unlike anything Jake or Emily had ever heard. It was not a nightmare scream. It was not a scared of the dark scream. It was a sound of pure agony that ripped both parents from sleep and sent them running down the hallway before their minds had fully awakened. Emily reached Sophie's bedroom first. She threw open the door and found her daughter sitting up in bed, drenched in sweat, her face pale as moonlight, her small hands clutching her left side. Sophie's eyes were wide with terror and pain, tears streaming down her cheeks as she gasped for breath between sobs. "Mommy, it hurts. Something hurts inside. Make it stop. Please make it stop." Jake appeared in the doorway seconds later, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He scanned the room for danger, for an intruder, for anything that could explain his daughter's screams. But there was nothing. Just Sophie in her princess pajamas, writhing in pain, clutching the same spot on her left side that Duke had been obsessing over for 2 weeks. And there was Duke. The German Shepherd stood in the hallway just outside Sophie's door, completely motionless, his amber eyes fixed on the little girl with an intensity that made Emily's breath catch in her throat. He was not trying to enter the room. He was not barking or whimpering or showing any of the frantic energy he had displayed during his pushing episodes. He simply stood there, watching, waiting, as if he had known this moment was coming all along. Emily looked at Duke. Really looked at him for the first time in weeks. And what she saw was not aggression. What she saw was not danger. What she saw was a guardian who had been trying desperately to warn them about something they were too blind to see. She did not push Duke away this time. Jake wanted to wait until morning. He tried to convince Emily that children get stomach aches, that Sophie probably ate something that disagreed with her, that a good night's sleep and some children's medicine would fix everything. But Emily was already pulling on her shoes, already grabbing the car keys from the hook by the door, already wrapping Sophie in a blanket. "We are going to St. Mary's Regional Medical Center. We are going right now. Do not argue with me, Jake." The drive took 17 minutes. Emily held Sophie in the back seat while Jake drove through dark, empty streets, running yellow lights and pushing 10 miles over the speed limit. Sophie's cries had faded to whimpers, but she still clutched her left side, still pressed her palm against that spot below her ribs as if she could push the pain back inside. The emergency room at St. Mary's was quiet at that hour. A few people sat in plastic chairs, coughing or holding ice packs to injuries. A television mounted in the corner played late-night news that no one was watching. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in harsh clinical white. Dr. Michael Torres examined Sophie with calm professional efficiency. He checked her temperature. He measured her blood pressure. He listened to her heart and lungs. He ordered basic blood work and reviewed the results when they came back. Everything appeared normal. Sophie's vitals were stable. Her blood work showed nothing alarming. By all measurable standards, she was a healthy 5-year-old girl with a stomach ache. Dr. Torres smiled reassuringly and reached for his prescription pad. "Probably just a stomach bug," he said. "Very common this time of year. Push fluids and rest. Give her children's Tylenol for the discomfort. She should be fine in a day or two." He was ready to send them home. But Emily could not shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She thought about Duke's behavior over the past 2 weeks. She thought about the pattern she had documented in her blue notebook. She thought about the way he always targeted Sophie's left side, the way he circled her and whimpered before each push, the way he watched her with those intense amber eyes that seemed to see something invisible. She thought about Thursday evening, when Duke had knocked Sophie onto soft grass half a second before her knees buckled, saving her from crashing onto concrete. Dr. Torres was halfway to the door when Emily stepped in front of him. "Doctor, I need you to check her left side. Specifically, I need an ultrasound or a scan of that area." The doctor frowned, clearly confused by the request. "Mrs. Thompson, her vitals are completely stable. There is no indication of anything serious. An ultrasound seems unnecessary at this point." Emily grabbed his arm. Her voice cracked with desperation. "Please listen to me. Our German Shepherd has been pushing our daughter down for 2 weeks. Every single time he targets her left side. I know how crazy that sounds. I know you probably think I am an overprotective mother who watches too many medical dramas. But something is wrong with my daughter. I can feel it. And I am begging you to check." Dr. Torres studied Emily's face for a long moment. He saw the dark circles under her eyes from sleepless nights. He saw the trembling in her hands. He saw a mother who was absolutely convinced that her child was in danger. And perhaps he remembered something from medical school, some lecture about trusting parental instincts, about the unexplainable ways that mothers sometimes know things doctors cannot measure. He nodded slowly. "I will order an ultrasound." The next 45 minutes were the longest of Jake and Emily's lives. They sat in a small examination room while Sophie lay on a narrow bed, a technician pressing a cold wand against her left side, sliding it back and forth, studying the monitor with an expression that gave nothing away. Sophie was calm now, the pain medication beginning to work, her eyes drooping with exhaustion. When the ultrasound was complete, the technician left without a word. Minutes passed. 10, 20, 30. Jake paced the small room. Emily held Sophie's hand and tried not to think about worst-case scenarios. Then Dr. Torres returned. His face had changed. The casual confidence was gone. The reassuring smile had disappeared. In its place was something that made Emily's stomach drop to the floor. Something serious. Something heavy. Something that doctors wore when they had to deliver news that would change lives forever. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. I need you to come with me. We found something. He led them to a small office down the hall, where a computer screen displayed Sophie's ultrasound images. And there it was. A shadow on the screen. 3 centimeters wide. Nestled against Sophie's left kidney. A mass that should not exist inside a 5-year-old girl. The doctor's voice was gentle but grave. This is a Wilms tumor. It is a type of kidney cancer that primarily affects children. Your daughter has a malignant tumor growing against her left kidney. Emily collapsed against Jake. The world spun around her. Her miracle baby. Her dandelion collector. Her butterfly namer. Her little girl had cancer. But Dr. Torres was not finished. And what he said next would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Mrs. Thompson, this tumor is remarkably early stage. We almost never catch them this small. Another 2 or 3 weeks, and it would have grown large enough to rupture. At that point survival rates dropped dramatically. He paused, looking at them with something like wonder. How did you know to check her left side? What made you insist on this scan? Jake looked at Emily. Emily looked at the floor. And through her tears, she whispered the truth. Our German Shepherd. He kept pushing her down. He kept targeting her left side. We thought he was dangerous. We scheduled an appointment to have him put down. The room fell completely silent. And somewhere in Cedar Falls, Minnesota, Duke lay by the front door of an empty house, waiting for his family to come home, not knowing that he had just saved Sophie's life. The Thompsons never made it to Duke's behavioral evaluation at Pine Valley Veterinary Clinic. The appointment that was supposed to determine whether their German Shepherd would be rehomed or destroyed was forgotten entirely. Instead, Jake and Emily spent the next 72 hours in a place they never imagined they would be. The Pediatric Oncology Wing of Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. One of the finest children's cancer centers in the entire world. Sophie was transferred by ambulance early Thursday morning. She lay on a stretcher wrapped in warm blankets, still groggy from pain medication, clutching a stuffed rabbit that Emily had grabbed from her bedroom. Jake followed behind in their car, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. He could not stop thinking about Duke. About the shotgun he had considered using. About how close he had come to destroying the creature who had been trying to save his daughter all along. Dr. Patricia Chun was the pediatric oncologist assigned to Sophie's case. She was a small woman with kind eyes and silver streaks in her dark hair, and she had spent 23 years treating childhood cancers. She had seen thousands of cases. She had delivered good news and bad news more times than she could count. But when she reviewed Sophie's file, something made her pause. She called Jake and Emily into her office on Friday afternoon, after Sophie had been stabilized and prepped for surgery scheduled the following morning. I have to tell you something remarkable, Dr. Chun began. She folded her hands on her desk and looked at them with an expression of genuine amazement. This tumor is early stage. Very early. We grade Wilms tumors on a scale of 1 to 5 based on size and spread. Your daughter's tumor is stage 1. It has not spread to lymph nodes. It has not invaded surrounding tissue. It is completely contained and completely operable. Emily gripped Jake's hand so hard her nails dug into his skin. Does that mean she will be okay? Dr. Chun nodded slowly. The survival rate for stage 1 Wilms tumors with complete surgical removal is over 90%. Sophie will need 6 weeks of recovery and monitoring, but I expect full remission. Your daughter is going to live, Mrs. Thompson. Emily broke down sobbing. Jake wrapped his arms around her and held her while tears streamed down his own face. Their miracle baby would survive. Their dandelion collector would grow up. Their butterfly namer would have a future. But Dr. Chun was not finished. What I cannot understand, she continued, is how you caught this so early. Most Wilms tumors are not discovered until they are much larger. Parents typically notice a visible mass in the abdomen, or the child develops severe symptoms that cannot be ignored. But Sophie's tumor was only 3 centimeters. At that size, there would have been minimal symptoms. Maybe occasional discomfort. Maybe some dizziness. Nothing that would normally prompt an emergency ultrasound. She leaned forward, genuine curiosity in her eyes. What made you insist on that scan? How did you know something was wrong with her left side specifically? Jake and Emily looked at each other. The question hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Emily wiped her eyes and took a shaky breath. "Our German Shepherd," she whispered. He kept pushing Sophie down. For 2 weeks he knocked her to the ground over and over again. And every single time he targeted her left side. He would nudge that spot below her ribs with his nose. He would circle her and whimper. We thought he was attacking her. We thought something was wrong with his brain. My husband was ready to put him down. Her voice broke on the last words. We almost killed the dog who saved her life. Dr. Chen sat back in her chair. A small smile crossed her face, not of amusement but of wonder. "Mrs. Thompson, dogs have up to 300 million olfactory receptors. Humans have only 6 million. There have been numerous documented cases of dogs detecting cancer in their owners simply by smelling the subtle chemical changes that occur when abnormal cells begin multiplying. Some studies suggest dogs can identify certain cancers with over 90% accuracy. They can smell what no machine can detect." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Your German Shepherd was not attacking your daughter. He was trying to tell you she was sick. He was pushing her down to get your attention, to make you focus on that spot where the tumor was growing. He was diagnosing her in the only way he knew how. And if you had not listened, if you had dismissed his behavior as simple aggression, your daughter might not be here in 6 months." Jake stood up abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. He walked to the window and stared out at the parking lot below, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. He had held a shotgun in his hands. He had been ready to pull the trigger. He had looked at Duke with hatred and fear, believing the dog had betrayed their family. And all along Duke had been the only one who knew the truth. Sophie's surgery took place Saturday morning. It lasted 4 hours. The surgical team removed the tumor completely, every single cancerous cell extracted from her small body. When Dr. Chen emerged from the operating room and gave them a thumbs up, Jake and Emily held each other and cried until they had no tears left. 6 weeks of recovery followed. Sophie grew stronger every day. The color returned to her cheeks. The sparkle returned to her eyes. She started collecting dandelions again, pressing them between the pages of books like precious treasures. And finally, on a cold December afternoon, the Thompson family drove home to Cedar Falls. Duke had not left his post by the front door since they had rushed Sophie to the hospital. The neighbors who came to feed him reported that he barely ate. He did not play with his toys. He did not explore the backyard. He simply lay by the door, waiting, his amber eyes fixed on the driveway, watching for the family he loved to return. When the car pulled up, Duke's ears perked forward. When the doors opened, his tail began to wag hesitantly. When Sophie stepped out, thin and pale but alive and smiling, Duke rose to his feet for the first time in weeks. He approached her slowly, more carefully than he had ever moved in his life. He sniffed her left side once. Twice. His nose pressed against the spot where the bandage covered her healing incision. And then his tail began to wag faster and faster until his whole body was wiggling with joy. The scent was gone. The wrongness had disappeared. His little girl was safe. Duke lay down beside Sophie on the living room couch and rested his massive head on her lap. He did not move for 3 hours. He simply lay there, breathing slowly, his eyes finally peaceful, his mission finally complete. Jake knelt beside them, tears streaming down his face. "I am sorry, boy. I am so sorry I did not understand. You were never the enemy. You were never dangerous. You were the only one trying to save her, and I almost killed you for it. I will never doubt you again. I promise." Duke looked up at Jake with those amber eyes, the same eyes that had once stared out from a starving abandoned puppy in a shelter. His tail thumped once against the couch cushion. All was forgiven. 3 months later, the Cedar Falls Fire Department held a ceremony in their community hall. Fire Chief Robert Henderson presented Duke with an honorary K-9 service medal, the first ever awarded to a civilian pet in the department's history. Local news station KARE 11 covered the story and it went viral within days, shared by millions of people who were moved by the tale of a rescue dog who rescued the little girl who gave him a home. But the moment that mattered most happened quietly, on a snowy evening in December, when Sophie took her first unassisted walk across the backyard since her surgery. Duke walked beside her, not pushing, not nudging, not panicking. Just walking. And when she stumbled slightly on a tree root, he moved closer so she could steady herself against his strong back. "Good boy, Duke," she whispered. His tail wagged slowly. His girl was safe. His job was done. That Christmas, a new photograph hung above the Thompson fireplace. Jake in his dress uniform. Emily in a red sweater. Sophie healthy and glowing in a sparkly dress. And Duke sitting proudly beside them, a silver jingle bell on his collar and a small engraved tag that read Duke Guardian Angel Sophie's hero. Some angels do not have wings. Some angels have 4 legs and wet noses and hearts bigger than any human could ever measure. And sometimes the ones we think are dangerous are the only ones trying to save us. If this story touched your heart, I need you to do something right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another incredible story like this one. Share this video with someone who needs to believe in miracles today. Drop a comment below telling me about a time when an animal did something that amazed you or saved someone you love. And if you have a dog waiting for you at home, give them an extra hug tonight. You never know what they might be trying to tell you. Thank you for watching until the end. Your support means everything to this channel. I will see you in the next story.